What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Thoughts with Nick. As you can see, we got a little snow on the ground. It's a bit windy today, so you're probably going to see me fixing my hair about a million times, but we got some sun, so it's not too bad. But anyway, as usual, going to get things started with the quote, and today's quote comes from Fidel Castro, and what he said was, "A revolution is a struggle to the death between the future and the past." And, I don't know a lot about Castro. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of him or anything like that. I just thought that quote was pretty apt and accurate for what I want to talk about today. But what I do know is he ran Cuba for a long time. The U.S. government tried to kill him about like 100,000 times, and he survived them all. And also that he was like a big communist guy, which I'm not really down with, but that's kind of besides the point. So anyway, revolution, right? It's a struggle to the death between the future and the past. I really couldn't have said it better myself. And when we think of revolution, I think what's kind of front of mind, if you will, is things like the American Revolution or the French Revolution, in which it was a violent, bloody struggle to overthrow the existing government in order to enact a government that was more representative of the people, I guess you could say. The French Revolution, they went a little crazy, but again, a conversation for another day. Point being, when we hear the word revolution, a lot of times the connotation is a violent struggle, a political uprising, upheaval of the masses, something along those lines. But what a revolution really is a turn, and it's kind of been hijacked by these political, social movements, so that when you hear the word revolution, you don't think of what it really is, which simply is a turn, RPMs in your car, revolutions per minute, shit like that, but anyway, that's what we're talking about today, revolutions, but in a very specific context, the New Year's revolution. And we got there's a little subtle word play, a letter play, if you will, swapping an S for a V in New Year's resolution over to New Year's revolution. But that's really what the resolution is, right? It's a revolution. It's a revolution against the past version of yourself. It's a struggle to the death between the past and the future versions of yourself, right? I hope this wind isn't fucking up the audio. If it is, we're just going to keep it moving. But anyway, it's a struggle to the death between the past and future versions of yourself. The past version can no longer exist as is as you continue to move into the future. The future version has to grow, take root and grow, rather, said that backwards. But the future version has to shed the past. It's, if you ever seen that episode of SpongeBob, right, where Mr. Krabs is like popping out of his shell, it's a little grotesque, honestly, but anyway, he's molting. That's kind of a fucked up analogy, but that's what we're talking about here. You're shedding the past version of yourself to grow into a new one. And it really is a revolution against yourself. You have to look inward and determine what it is that you're not thrilled with, that you're not happy with, that you're not proud of, about the version of yourself that existed in the past year, and determine how you can make changes to revolt against that version to ensure that you don't bring those habits, tendencies, activities, interests, whatever it is, into the future version of yourself, And that's why I'm calling this video New Year's Revolutions. And that's why I think from now on, I'm going to stop using the word or the term New Year's resolution and instead call it New Year's Revolution. Because what the fuck is a New Year's resolution? Everyone says this and that, and they never fucking do it. I'm just as guilty of that. I talked about that in another video earlier this year, probably touched, or last year, now that we're at January 1st over here. But anyway, I think it was the staircase of goal setting. I talked about how I just set these super grandiose, if you will, goals for this past year. And they just weren't attainable right off the bat. They were just way too much. I was way too ambitious, and it was never going to happen, right? And that version of myself was able to laugh it off. Other versions of myself might have been discouraged, disheartened, displeased. But, you know, I was able to look at it objectively and say, you know what, that shit was never going to happen. So there's no reason to even get upset about it. But in the past, you know, with lessened level of emotional maturity or personal understanding than I have today, maybe that would have caused me some strife internally. But anyway, point being, you got to be realistic. You got to set a bar at a place that you can reach it. And in order to do so, I think it's important to look inwardly and reflect on the things that didn't go your way this year, or not even that, not the things that didn't go your way, but the things that you fucked up on, right? Like, there's a handful of times this year I was super duper locked in. I was killing shit. I was on the right track. I was knocking out my goals, whatever that is, with the YouTube, with the gym, with my diet, with the books that I read, you know, all that type of stuff. I was really dialed in. And then something happened, whether it be an external influence, internal attitude, you know, something like that. It could be anything, but man, my hair is blowing like crazy. But something that just kind of causes you to become distracted. It knocks you off center. You are derailed from the path that you're on. And those are the things that you got to try and pinpoint. You got to, if you can, determine some level of consistency, right? What are the common themes? What was going on in each case where you became derailed? Is there anything? Is there a common denominator? Are there similarities with these situations? What happened? What led to this? I don't want to call it a failure, but this devolution, if you will, almost. That's not the right word either. I'm kind of not finding the word that I'm looking for. But anyway, what led to this distraction, right? This setback. That's good enough. And if you can pinpoint something, if you can determine some type of commonality, that's fucking excellent. You know, it's not always going to be like that. There's not always going to be some unique identifier, right, that leads you right to what it is that you need to work on. And you know, that makes it a little more difficult. But if you do have that, if you're lucky enough to have that, that's where you should try and start, in my opinion. And something else with these, right? Like, the same as an actual revolution in the term that, in the way that we think of the term commonly, you know, it's not going to be achieved in one fell swoop. You know, the American Revolution wasn't one overnight. It was a long and grueling process, you know. And a personal revolution, a New Year's revolution, isn't going to be achieved overnight either. It's not going to be, oh, whoop-de-doo, it went from December 31st to January 1st, and now my personal revolution has been achieved. No, it's not going to be like that. It's never going to be like that. So if you think it's going to be like that, you need to adjust your attitude and change your mindset, because you actually got to put in the work. And, you know, a lot, like all these things, speaking of myself here too, I got to adjust my attitude a little bit in the new year and make sure that I'm doing the work required to bring my personal revolutions, my New Year's revolutions, into fruition in this new year. And I think the new year is a great time of beginning, starting afresh, you know, and it's a great opportunity to do that inward reflection and try and determine how you can improve on your path, how you can take those next steps forward, and what that looks like for you, you know, and it's going to be different for everyone. Man, I maybe should have put on a beanie, but I didn't. So anyway, yeah, New Year's revolutions. Try and determine a couple things, if you can, that need change, and just try and kick off that revolution process. Try and start that revolution against yourself. That revolution against yourself for yourself, right? When you kill or shed the past version of yourself, it's not a bad thing. It's not something to be sad about. It's something to be happy and proud about, because you're leaving those habits, qualities, tendencies, etc. behind you, and you're moving into a higher version of yourself, more in line with your true purpose, you know. And that's kind of getting a little more abstract and spiritual, but that's really what it comes down to. You know, you're bringing a new level of harmony into your life if you're lucky enough to do so. And that's really all I got for you today, guys. Kind of just a brief one and a new way to think of New Year's resolutions, and kind of just do a little bit of wordplay with it over to New Year's revolutions, and realize that that's really what you're doing. You're revolting against yourself in a positive, constructive way. And, you know, internalize that this revolution won't be completed overnight. It's a year-long process. And then when the new year rolls around again in 365 days, we're going to do it all over again. And that's a good thing. So Happy New Year, everybody. It's day one. Let's start our revolutions today. Let's get off on the right foot. And let's make this shit happen. Let's lock the fuck in. It's 2026. It's time to get our shit together and figure it the fuck out. So thank you for tuning in. I do apologize for the profanity, but sometimes you gotta just let it all flow. So anyway, I hope you have a great, blessed, awesome, incredible, enjoyable 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, peace.